So Dr. B's identity is protected by court order. So I or we are not going to take any interest in any personal details about her. That said, in terms of the Lucy Letby case, between the report by Dr. Lee's panel and the whistleblowing by the former senior coroner's officer Stephanie Davis, she is now implicated in potential medical negligence, perjury, and a conspiracy to pervert the course of justice. Before getting into any specific controversy surrounding Dr. B, I'd first like to go through what I consider to be a pretty good article in the Daily Telegraph. Rare anonymity orders on Lucy Letby witnesses will have chilling effects on future cases. The article points out that even before the trial, emotional arguments were made by Cheshire Police to keep relevant details from the jury, and these were indulged by the judiciary. This is an article written just after the verdict, and was written by someone who I think, at the time, would have thought Lucy Letby was probably guilty. Reading through it, quote, "The imposition of far-reaching and highly unusual reporting restrictions resulted in the sacred principle of open justice being abandoned during the Lucy Letby trial," a leading barrister has said. Politicians and legal campaigners have warned that the anonymity orders preventing the naming of the victims and their families, as well as a number of key witnesses, will have a chilling effect on court cases of the future. Continuing with the article, quote, "More than 2 years before the proceedings began, a judge imposed an order banning the press from identifying any of the victims or their families. I don't think there are many who think Lucy Letby is innocent who have a problem with the parents and children being anonymous or getting compensation. The issue for most is obviously going to be with prosecution witnesses who should be regarded as suspects getting anonymity." I think most will find the next quote more concerning. "The decision followed highly emotional arguments put forward by police and prosecutors on behalf of the families that claimed the press would report the trial in an irresponsible manner unless all the names were removed. If you have been following the case, then you'll notice the objectivity of the police investigation has been criticised. I don't think it takes a genius to figure out that having spent millions of pounds of public money on a certain line of inquiry, the police would not have wanted to effectively be told they were barking up the wrong tree, which would be the case if the jury returned a not guilty verdict." The article then goes on to mention what could be interpreted as an early attempt by Cheshire Police to control the media narrative. Quote, "The reports of Letby's appearance at Warrington Magistrates Court on 12th of November 2020, in which only the most basic facts were published, was described in one police statement as concerning." So it sounds like there was a disproportionate reaction by the police. The article also notes a police error, quote, "There was also an inaccurate comment in one statement submitted to the court, suggesting the media had released the names of the murder victims into the public domain, when in fact that was done lawfully by the Magistrates Court." Before anyone thinks the anonymity orders were another howler from Judge Goss, I should read through this bit. Handing down her ruling, Miss Justice Stain, who was not the trial judge, said she was satisfied the quality of the evidence given by each of these witnesses is likely to be diminished by reason of fear or distress on the part of the witness in connection with being identified by members of the public as a witness in the proceedings. Continuing with the article, quote, "In a further challenge to the principle of open justice, lawyers for a number of Letby's colleagues also successfully applied for anonymity, arguing that their mental health would suffer if they were identified during proceedings." The article is quite light on details about Dr. B specifically, so I would now like to pivot to this article in the Daily Mail, titled "Revealed, one of the consultants who helped jail Letby accidentally killed a baby, yet this was kept from the jury. John Sweeney's devastating expose of what really went on in Broken Hospital." I think the story about Dr. B was originally broken by journalist Lucy de Oliveira, but reading through John Sweeney's article, quote, "I understand that astoundingly, given that her evidence helped send the young woman to prison for the rest of her days, Dr. B was granted this status because she had been the consultant in charge when a baby died at the hospital in 2014. A subsequent inquest recorded a verdict of death by misadventure, pointing to a litany of failings that took place on her watch." Continuing with the John Sweeney article, he says, quote, "Faced with a premature baby desperately in need of oxygen, Dr. B negligently inserted a breathing tube down the poor baby's gullet instead of his windpipe. No fewer than 5 warning signs that she and her team had made a fatal mistake were ignored, and because of their lack of proper care, Noah Robinson, who had been born 3 months prematurely, died. Worse still, this information was withheld from the jury that convicted Letby in her first trial. I think for most people it's going to be very hard to justify the decision to keep the information about an error by Dr. B from the jury. The information that a doctor made a series of errors and then by logical extension would have been predisposed to make further errors in the future was surely relevant information. Continuing with the John Sweeney article, he says, let's look in detail at the track record of Dr. B. In 2014, a year before Letby started her alleged killing spree, Noah Robinson, whose parents lived in Upton, Chester, was delivered by caesarean section on March 20th after his mother, Melanie, developed potentially fatal preeclampsia. He weighed just 1 pound 7 ounces. While Noah was very premature, he would have had a good chance of living had he been treated properly, according to an inquest held the following year. Continuing with the John Sweeney article, he goes on to describe details about the 2015 inquest into Noah Robinson's death. The coroner recorded a verdict of death by misadventure, the unintended consequences of an intended event, primarily esophageal intubation. In plain English, putting the breathing tube down the gullet, not the trachea. After the inquest, Noah's mother Melanie said, "We put our trust in the doctors to look after Noah, but they didn't do what they were supposed to. We feel terribly let down by the NHS. It is good that there is a police investigation and the hospital has gone to them voluntarily. However, that police investigation came to nothing. There's nothing obviously on the internet suggesting what the police would have been investigating in 2015. You have to wonder if they were considering investigating Dr. B for gross negligence manslaughter. Personally, I think doctors should be given some leeway to make mistakes, even mistakes that might seem shocking in isolation, provided they are a rare event in the wider context of the doctor's career." I'd just like to play a clip from a lawyer called Emma Jones, who has encountered a number of gross negligence manslaughter cases during her career. Here she talks about the legal bar in proving a gross negligence manslaughter case.
The breach has to be very gross, really severe, basically demonstrating a significant disregard for human life.
So in the case of baby Noah Robinson, I'm not sure there's convincing evidence to suggest that Dr. B did show callous regard for human life. Yes, she made shocking mistakes, but I think these may fall into the category of complacency when viewed in isolation. However, when observing the way Dr. B acted towards Lucy Letby, I find it easier to imagine her as an individual who shows callous regard for human life or even malice and sadism. Personally, I have great doubts that she ever honestly believed that Lucy Letby was harming babies. So now onto the case of baby P, looking at the roles of Dr. B and Lucy Letby. The prosecution case is that Lucy Letby repeatedly pumped air with a manual syringe down a very narrow nasogastric tube until the baby's stomach was blown up enough that he collapsed. The report by Dr. Lee's panel of experts, in contrast, highlights a litany of failures by Dr. B. Reading through the bit highlighted, baby 16, or baby P's care after the collapse on 24th of June, was mismanaged and there were unacceptable delays in recognition and treatment of the pneumothorax, aka collapsed lung. Delay in treatment of the pneumothorax led to persistent metabolic acidosis because of persistent poor circulation and gas exchange caused by the pneumothorax. So quite a technical description there, but probably the easiest way to think about it is that there has been a collapsed lung that has been badly treated by the consultant in charge, Dr. B. Reading through a bit more of the panel description, the medical records do not show that a cold light test was performed. He was treated with high pressure ventilation and adrenaline, despite having no lung disease and requiring only 26% oxygen. Both are harmful because high ventilation pressures impede venous return to the heart, resulting in worsening circulatory failure and adrenaline punishes the heart by overworking it unnecessarily. Returning to the John Sweeney article, he gives you a sense of just how dramatic Dr. B's testimony was in relation to baby P. Dr. B's evidence in Letby's trial was described by one reporter covering the proceedings as, quote, a defining moment. Even though her face was hidden behind a screen and her voice a harrowed whisper, those in court could sense that this was a defining point in the Lucy Letby trial. So now I'd like to play a clip from the Daily Mail podcast where they cover the baby P case.
Dr. B told jurors he appeared to recover quickly again and was fighting against the ventilator.
So baby P was fighting. I think the open question is, was he fighting against some of Dr. B's counterproductive interventions, or was he fighting against the presence of Lucy Letby? Even though the report by Dr. Lee's panel seems to suggest a progressive pattern of deterioration exacerbated by counterproductive treatment measures, under oath Dr. B would describe a different situation, suggesting the baby would improve significantly before a sudden and unexpected final collapse.
She said she thought they were winning because baby P was the best he'd been all day, and she was hopeful because the transport team were on their way to take him to the specialist centre.
Testifying from behind her screen, Dr. B would describe how keen she was for the transport team to arrive. Once again, the open question is, would the transport team be taking the baby to a better hospital with more competent doctors, or would the transport team be removing the baby from proximity to Lucy Letby?
I remember saying the transport team are going to be here soon, almost thinking out loud. I was literally counting the minutes before they arrived.
With no independent ear witnesses around, in a highly dramatic account, Dr. B would allege Lucy Letby would make a shocking comment. I should say that this clip is voiced by an actor.
Staff nurse Letby said, "He's not leaving here alive, is he?" Which I found absolutely shocking at the time. I turned around and said, "Don't say that."
It has been suggested, and I think the intention of the statement at the time was to suggest that this comment revealed Lucy Letby's determination to kill the baby. However, there are significant doubts that the comment was ever stated. If you look at this bit from Lucy Letby's cross-examination, the prosecutor puts it to her, quote, "Do you remember what you said?" Lucy Letby responds, "I know what she says that I said. I don't recall saying that." The prosecutor then quotes, "He's not leaving here alive, is he?" That, as a matter of fact, was an accurate prediction, wasn't it? Lucy Letby responds, "I don't recall saying that statement at that time." The prosecutor says, "What did you say?" Lucy Letby responds, "I don't recall the conversation." Now to look at the recollection of an arguably independent witness. Ariane Powell, the ward manager, was allegedly told by Dr. B about the not leaving here alive comment. She was questioned about this at the Thirlwall inquiry. Inquiry counsel put it to her, quote, "Dr. V has told us that she also let you know that Letby made the remark to her that baby P wasn't going to get out alive. Do you remember her telling you that?" Ariane Powell responds, "I remember her saying that she did an inappropriate comment. She never said what it was, and I asked her, like what? And she said, well, I can't think now. I can't remember what it was." So immediately after the incident, Dr. B had a very hazy memory. Yet years later at the trial, she would claim this was a dramatic memory.
All these years on, 7 years on, that memory is still very much alive in my mind.
The other case that raises major concerns about Dr. B is the case of baby O. It has been alleged that with Dr. B present, Dr. Breary recklessly inserted a needle into the baby to relieve air pressure in the abdomen.
The needle perforated the liver. The baby was still being ventilated. The liver was now being lacerated.
Yet, when Dr. B came to report details of the failed resuscitation to the coroner, and therefore the pathologist, she withheld details about the needle insertion. This meant the pathologist did not have the context to the needle insertion when carrying out the post-mortem. You wonder why Dr. Bree withheld these details. If you are being conspiratorial, you could wonder perhaps If Dr. Beery backed Dr. B over the Noah Robinson scandal, then perhaps Dr. B owed Dr. Beery a favour. Although there's not really any evidence of that at this point, that's just speculation. 4 months after the death of baby O, a coroner's inquest would be called over the death of baby O. Perhaps with her own clinical practice now in the firing line, Dr. B would belatedly admit there had been a needle insertion. Reading through the underlined bit, quote, Dr. Beery inserted an intravenous cannula line to his McBurney's point, the right side of the lower abdomen. Dr. B was known as Dr. B during the criminal trial. For the Thirlwall inquiry, she was known as Dr. V, which is why it says Dr. V at the bottom here. The consultants would subvert the coroner's inquest by going to the police instead. So in conclusion, Dr. B was granted anonymity on the basis that anonymous testimony would improve the quality of her evidence. Ironically, there are now doubts that she even gave truthful testimony. In my opinion, the Lucy Letby case needs to be handed over to another police force for a full and impartial investigation.